Dear participants at the roundtable that has been organized by EFIL in Strasbourg at the European Youth Event. I'm very sorry that I cannot be with you by myself, but I hope this video message will give you an input of my AFS experience. And this comes here from the European Parliament in Strasbourg, and I am Vice President of this Parliament. I'm from Austria, from the Green Party, and I've been a member of this European Parliament for now more than 6 years. I was a national parliamentarian before for 10 years, but I always say, without my AFS experience more than 40 years ago, 1973-74, I don't think that I might be here and in this position here now. So let me tell you why my AFS experience was such an important one. As I said, I come from Austria, from Lower Austria. I lived in Vienna, but I always wanted to go abroad. I always wanted to see other parts of the world. So when I was 15, I applied, and it was 1972. I applied, and it was at that time the programs that you could go to other places from Europe, so other places than the US, had just been starting, and for me it was clear I want to go to the United States of America. And I made it, but I managed to get not to the places I thought were the very modern ones like the East Coast or California somewhere. I went to Iowa, Boone, Iowa, Midwest. It was the city, a small city, town I would rather say, of 13,000 inhabitants with 23 Christian churches, white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, all migrants from before, from Scandinavia, from Germany, etc. So that wasn't really what I had expected. I had wanted a more multicultural, whatever place. But it was a place where everybody went to the same school. All people, whether they were rich or poor, whether they were very intelligent or maybe they preferred other things and didn't really like reading so much, everybody went to the same school, everybody did sports together, everybody did dances and things together. So this was a very interesting experience for me. And also in that place, in Iowa, in the Midwest, in 1973, there was a course where we read international affairs. And we talked about strategic arms limitation talks in Vienna at that time. We talked about the indictment of Nixon because of Watergate scandal. We discussed lots of things, United Nations, etc., which in my school, in the center of Vienna at that time, we did not do. So it was also a very Puritan there, because you couldn't go to the dances, just a group of young people. As a girl, you had to wait for a boy to ask you for a date. So that's things I did not really like. But in general, it was a very enriching experience. And what made me afterwards also study languages, I'm an interpreter originally for English and Spanish, and what made me also go on a long journey through Latin America in 1978, was that I met people from all over the world. You know, in this AFS experience, you always share time with people or others who are there. And for a certain, I don't know exactly why, I became most friends with those from Latin America. And years afterwards, I decided to go with backpacking around South America with a friend and then alone and visit some of them. And that was my politicization in a way. Because in Peru, I realized the huge differences between rich and poor, which we haven't had in the parts of Europe that I knew at that time, and we don't have them now either. And in Chile, that was 5 years after the military coup, I got to know people whose family or friends had been killed in the coup, who had to go into exile, who were in prison, who had been tortured. And for me, it was clear that I was going to do something else in my life than just have other people's thoughts pass through my mind and interpret it into another language and not being able to say anything if I think it's wrong what somebody else is saying. So that made me start with becoming an activist in Latin American solidarity movement. I became a feminist activist. We managed in a very Catholic and traditional part of Austria in the Tyrol, very beautiful with mountains and so on. But there we managed to do the first shelter for battered women and their children in 1979-80. And I also decided that I will do things in these international affairs. In the mid-90s, then I decided to switch sides from civil society activism to party and parliamentary politics, and that's how I ended up in politics. And I'm quite sure if I hadn't had that experience with AFS when I was very young, I just had turned 16, I'm not so sure whether I would be here representing the European Parliament as its Vice President and being able to address you like that. And let me also tell one thing, my country, Austria, and I was already one who had profited from that in 1974, was one where the study period that you had been doing abroad was accepted at home. I had to do tests in the last school year, in the first couple of weeks, to do some tests for the last school year, but I was able to continue without losing 1 year at school at home. My country is one that makes it possible for AFS and other students to do that, and I really think every country should do that, because the experience you have somewhere else, maybe you don't learn everything that you would have maybe learned at school at home, but you learn such a lot of other things. And I guess some of you know this song some of us have been singing then, which sometimes reminds me when I'm here in this European Parliament, this walk together, talk together, all your peoples from of the world, because then we will have peace. It doesn't work like that, we know, but without that we won't have peace either. So this experience is a very enriching one. I wish many people to have that, and I hope I'll meet you one day, and I hope you'll have a very enjoyable stay at the European Youth Event. Bye bye.